What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Exhaust Note. I'm Wile E. Coyote, and this is the initial episode of the Exhaust Note. I'm a big car guy. I know you guys are too if you're watching this video, so I figured it might be kind of fun to make some. I've been a big car enthusiast my whole life. I've been into cars since I was a kid, so I figured it might be kind of fun to talk about some of the ones I have and the different modifications and things I'm doing to them. I will admit I am an OEM guy, so I tend to like to keep cars pretty stock for the most part. I know everybody's a little bit different, but these videos will be about the cars that I have in ways that I'm kind of playing around with them without making them too crazy. So in this initial episode, we're going to talk about my M3, which I picked up this year in March of 2018. It's a 2002 E46 M3 silver on black. And I've spent a huge amount of time working on it so far, and I'm going to talk about all the things I've done to it so far, and then we'll do a whole ton of episodes on this car and the continued things I'm going to do to it. I'm going to do some episodes on my other cars. I like to do track days, so we'll talk about some track days as well. In this episode of the Exhaust Note, I'll give you an initial rundown of this M3, all the specs on it, all the things I've done to date, and then we're actually going to be pulling off a wrap for it. When the initial owner, when the guy I bought it from him, he had wrapped it all in a Nardo gray. And again, you know, as I said, I tend to be an OEM guy, and I love to see, you know, stock cars. So I want to kind of take it back to stock and see what the paint looks like. So anywho, on to my M3. I picked this up in March of 2018. And it's a 2002. It's got just about 133,000 miles on it, which seems like a lot. But a lot of the research I've done says that these motors will go for over 200 if you take care of them. They need to have, you know, their usual maintenance. The vanos, the valves need to be adjused. Got to look out for the cooling systems, you know, belts and hoses, those kinds of things. And it was in rough shape. I picked it up for a good price. But there were a lot of things I knew needed to be done to it. So when I picked it up, it had gotten a new transmission. The transmission fluid had gotten flushed. I had the previous owner was a mechanic, so I asked him to do the whole cooling system for me. So I knew the car was in decent shape. We also did a steering rack, and a couple other different things to it. All right, so when I picked this car up, it was in okay shape, but the interior was needed a little bit of help. So I swapped out all of the silver trim that you see here. It had Titan shadow trim in it, and the Titan shadow trim was in real bad shape. I also swapped out the leather shift boot for an Alcantara boot. I also have an Alcantara e-brake boot. I got new cup holders, new coin tray. I also got a new business CD radio because it needed that. I also just recently picked up a new ashtray assembly here, which doesn't look like it's actually in great shape right now. I admittedly haven't cleaned the car, but it actually is in decent shape. It's a lot better than the one that I had. One of the other things I've been doing to this car, which I actually really like, is I've been getting into PA Soft a little bit. You can get into the car's computer via the OBD2 port with a computer program from... You can download it from like 100 different places and get the scanners off eBay. And you can change different factory settings and different things about the car. For example, you can have the passenger mirror tilt down. You can turn the daytime running lights on and off. Some of these cars came with some of those options turned on or off from the factory, depending on how the owners had ordered it. But they make it pretty easy in this program to be able to go in and turn things on and off. I have here a trusty Dell laptop that I sort of restored. It's my fiance's old computer. The screen was shot, the battery was toast, and for about $50 I bought a new screen and a new battery for it and restored it because it's got Windows XP on it, and now I just run PA Soft on that and it's great. One of the things that was really nice about that actually is when I bought the car, there was a tamper dot that was on in the cluster, which means that something that had stored the mileage in it had been messed up. These cars have about 4 different computers in them that store the mileage and VIN information, and they all talk to each other every time you turn the car on. And so if one of them doesn't match for whatever reason, it puts this little dot on the in the odometer, which basically is supposed to tell the driver or the owner that something's been tampered with. In my case, I've taken this to my local BMW shop to have them do a pre-purchase inspection. which is part of the reason why I was willing to pick it up, because they gave it a pretty much a clean bill of health. And essentially what they found was that the light control module was a newer one. It had been swapped out at some point, and one of the previous owners, whoever it was, didn't bother to recode it. So the mileage in the cluster and the mileage in the LCM were not matching. So thankfully, though, with PASoft, I can go into the LCM and reprogram the mileage, and then the tamper dot went away. So that made me really happy. You can see this car also has a tint on it. It had all the windows tinted as well as the rear window. I actually pulled the tint off, and you can see it here in these two windows is done. I'm leaving it in the back window for the moment, but here in New York State, you're required to only have tint on the back window if you want it at all. So in order to pass inspection, I had to pull the tint off. So the motor, surprisingly, is actually in pretty decent shape. You know, there's not a lot of oil leaks. There's actually no oil leaks in it. There's no coolant leaks in it either. I added the strut bar that you see here. It's an OEM BMW strut bar that only came on, I believe, the 2003s and up, but it does fit the 2001s and up, 2000s and up. So I ended up adding that for stability. I do track this car, so you'll see that it really needs to have some stability pieces in it. The headlights and the headlight covers are actually in pretty decent shape too. I did have an issue with the headlights going in and out, so I needed to swap the ballast and bulbs so that they stopped giving me headlight out warnings. You can see here the car is actually in pretty decent shape in the exterior. Again, though, it's got a Nardo gray wrap on it. You can see I've already started to take off the different pieces of it there, and today's video is going to concentrate a little bit on that. When I got the car, it did come with the OEM 19s. I did put a set of EBC yellow stuff brake pads on it. You can see those here. I also did do Turner Motorsports stainless steel lines and centric rotors, and they actually were pretty good on the track. So that was a good thing. Being that this was a 2002. From the factory, it came with the halogen taillights. Some previous owner at some point had put in a set of eagle eyes, which the LCM did not get flashed correctly, so it was giving me taillight out warnings, and they were pulsing and flickering, and I just didn't want to deal with it. So I took those out, and I threw in these halogen lights here. The inners that I've got here are actually the ones for the LED taillights, but they actually seem to work just fine. So I've left them in. So it's sort of nice to have. I know I'm not usually a halogen fan, and I know a lot of other people aren't too, but it's been nice to sort of have. You know, when I bought this car, it was amazing to me how many little parts and pieces it was missing, and how many different things had been taken off of it at some point and never replaced. So since March, I've just been buying a huge amount of used parts from the forums, from eBay, and I'm not even sure I can list them all off. I needed to get a battery tie down for it. There's a bunch of bolts and things missing in the engine compartment that I needed to get. When I originally picked the car up, it had the trunk release piece here was didn't work, and neither of the lights worked. It was totally corroded, so I had to get a new one of those. There were some little bolts and pieces on the inside of the car that were missing. It looks like all of the lumbar support pieces on the inside were missing. So, you know, it's incredible to me. This is a high performance car. You know, $50,000 back in 2002. I picked it up for a fraction of that, but it is a representation of how some people just do not take care of their cars and are not real enthusiasts, but just want the badge. And part of this and the fun is I've always wanted one of these cars. I've wanted one since I was a little kid, but part of this is also for me bringing it back to stock and restoring it to the sort of supercar luster that it had back in 2002 when it was manufactured. So today I got out of work a little early, and I've been playing around with a couple things. My windshield washer fluid, I was a little nervous because the pump didn't seem to be cooperating as well. I also had a non-stock washer fluid grate here, a hood vent grate. So today I got a new one in the mail the other day from Mpartsworldwide. Shout out to those guys. They have a lot of awesome M3 parts, and picked that up. And as soon as I swapped that out, it was amazing to me. It worked just fine. I had no issues, and it looks really great. The other piece that I did was I took the wheel off, and the washer reservoir on these cars, amazingly or not, is located back behind here. You can't even see it in there, but it's located back behind the wheel well. So what you have to do is actually take the tire off to check out any issues with that. I thought I was having an issue with a crack in the tank, but the last couple times I filled it up with water, everything was just fine. When I took it apart today, everything looked fine too. So I had bought a new washer motor off of eBay for like 10 bucks and figured as long as I had the thing apart, I might as well swap it. So that part got swapped out today too. So as I talked about before, this car has this Nardo gray wrap on it, which looks okay, but it's just not my thing. So part of my desire for today's video was to talk about the car a little bit, as well as do sort of a paint unveiling and see what the condition of the paint looks like. When I talked to the previous owner about it, he said the paint was in really bad shape. But I'm wondering if I can take the wrap off and with a really good wash, wax, clay bar, if we can bring back some of that luster to it. You know, this car, I knew this car was not going to be the prettiest one. I knew it wasn't going to be a show car. I tend to like to drive my cars a lot. So I'm willing to take the risk and see what the paint looks like. My biggest concern, frankly, is that while the wrap looks pretty decent, if I ever have to replace a part, which I've already had to do a couple times on the exterior, they're never going to match, and it's going to look like a mismatched car. So my thing really was just that I wanted to be able to have an all-silver car, bring it back to stock again, and then that way anytime I needed to swap out an exterior part or piece, the paint would match. So let's take a look, and we'll see how things go. We'll start with the bumper. All right, guys, so as you can see, I've gotten to peel a whole bunch of the car back, and it started looking really good until you get to some certain pieces. And then the wrap has peeled the paint off, which is great. Some of these other pieces and the sides don't look quite so bad until you get to the back. Previous owner told me there was a small rust problem back here. I have a feeling it might be a little bit worse than small. I've gotten a good chunk of this side peeled back, and of course you can see here that this piece is new but completely unpainted. Same thing with this piece here, so I'm actually going to leave that wrapped for the moment. Although it does look like at some point somebody either dinged something or ran a door into this. So although wrap is still not my thing, I can see why the previous owner did it. The paint underneath is not in some spots in the best condition. I still have to do the trunk and the rear bumper. So we finally finished up with this car. It took me like a week to pull all the wrap off of this. And I have to admit, despite the fact that there are some obvious issues, I like the looks of the all silver better than the Nardo gray. Just a personal opinion, just the way I like the car. However, it is what it is. There is no question, however, that there's going to be some more work that's going to have to get done on this. The front bumper, as you can see, still needs some work. You can see here, there's plenty of paint missing in a couple places that peeled off because of the wrap. So that's going to have to get worked on. And certainly the rear bumper in that spot and a few others, I may have to pick out the Bondo that's in there and redo it, or find a new bumper. I haven't quite decided yet what my plan is going to be on how to fix this rear bumper. So we're going to finish this video for now. I will continue to update you guys on the car as it goes along. The one suggestion that I can have for you is this. Whether you like a wrapped car or you don't like a wrapped car, my suggestion would be make sure that you know 100% and what is under the wrap more specifically before you buy it. Because if you ever want to change that wrap, or something happens to it and you have to peel the wrap off of it, if you have some huge rust issues, it's going to be a problem and you're going to end up spending a lot of money trying to fix it. So make sure that you either buy a car unwrapped, which is really the better idea, and then go get it wrapped in a different color, or make sure that the previous owner is 100% honest with you about what happened underneath the paint and why they wrapped it in the first place, because if you're not careful, you're going to have some issues. All right, YouTube, that's all I got for now. I'll see you guys in the next episode of The Exhaust Note.